So we're watching Jordan Peterson, and he's making a point on homeschooling.
15 years ago, I would have presumed that the vast majority of people who were homeschooling their children were to be viewed with skepticism initially. I'm not so sure about that anymore.
Yeah, there used to be a time when homeschooling was kind of like a fringe idea.
If you were the homeschool kid and you're suddenly put into public school, you were the very weird kid that
Yeah.
everyone made fun of.
But we're starting to see that it's not as weird as it used to be.
And
No?
now I wanted my kid to be the homeschooled kid.
Why?
So many different things. First of all, it's not public school is not safe anymore. Like physically safe, your kid could get shot.
Yeah.
And that's a very huge risk. I even that alone is enough for me to go like, you know what? In my child's life, it's worth not even bothering with public school at all. She can stay home. I'll teach her everything I know. We can work hard and hire private tutors for more higher education,
Yeah. What
but
else?
she is not going out like that. She's not going to public school just for that reason alone. But
Right. Added with the fact that it's been proven that a lot of things that are being taught in schools don't prepare people for the real world.
I think they really just prepare you to get into a mediocre job. I think they instill a different type of, they instill the type of mindset that you need to, just be live a very, very mediocre existence.
Yeah.
And as, not that that's bad, but I think, here we are as just professional middle class people. How's it working out for you?
Yeah. Just looking back at the years in school, a lot of it was just a waste.
I
Waste of
feel
time, waste of money.
So I think you have increasing reason to be skeptical of the public education system. I also looked at the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario's guidelines for education from kindergarten to grade 8, and what that is in essence, and I think I will do a video about it in the relatively near future, is a blueprint for transforming children into social justice warriors. It basically says that. It's like you don't have to be a conspiracy theory to read that. I mean, we have social justice tribunals in Ontario. And so the idea is, well, if you're going to get your children, if you're going to get people to, what would you say, favor equity properly, well, then you better start teaching them while they're young. It's like, maybe not. So now, you ask that question properly, because you say, well, the terrible education system, the wonderful mother homeschooling, right? That's the danger. It's like, no, because it might not be the wonderful mother homeschooling. It might be the pathological mother using the pathology of the education system as an excuse to get her talons into her children, right? Because that's certainly equally possible, or perhaps even more possible, because at least in the public education system, there's some necessity for consensus. So that's something that you have to be very aware of and work to prevent, right? And so I would say, if you're going to do that, probably best not to do it on your own. And it's like you need a board of advisors or something like that, and so maybe it can't just be you, and you have to figure out, well, what is the aim? And how are you going to manage that? And what makes you think you can do it? Even if it's being done badly publicly, what makes you think you could do it better?
everyone's parent, grandparent, whatever, they've told their children, I'm sacrificing for you so you can go to school and you can go to college and then you're going to have a really great job and you're going to have a better life than me. Everyone's parents somehow instills these high expectations that their child's going to go super far, and it's because they're putting them in that school. And that school is supposed to get you to the next step, and then the next step, and the next step. And then when you're there, you actually didn't get to reach the expectations that your parents had laid out for you. Everyone feels this way. And then you go, my kid's going to be the one. So now you put your kid through this school and they go through the same exact cycle and the same thing happens to them. At some point we have to go, you know what, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting something different to happen.
Right.
And nothing different is ever going to happen unless we do something completely different.
Right.
So we need to break the cycle.
We have to break the cycle. It's not. There's nothing inherently wrong with educating your children. You should educate your children.
Yeah, of course you have
The
to.
point
You can't
is
just let
that
them be.
the education needs to improve. It needs
Right.
to actually provide us. It needs to upgrade with the times. Given that we have more resources, we don't need to memorize information like we used to. There's Google. There's AI now. Like we should actually be training children for the types of jobs and the types of skills that we need to make society better. And if we keep lining up to put our kids in the same system that has failed our parents and failed their parents, that's just stupidity.
You know, for example, I was sent a poster today. Someone sent me this link that they found in a local junior high school, and one of the media pieces that were recommended on this poster was a movie called Hedwig and the Angry Inch. Now, I thought that was a terrible movie, even though I'm perfectly capable of enjoying bizarre movies. But so it's a bizarre movie, that's for sure, but I also thought it was a terrible, bitter movie. Terrible and bitter. Those are separate. A movie can be bitter and be quite great, but it was a terrible movie and it was a bitter movie. But I can tell you one bloody thing about that movie. It's not required viewing for 12-year-old kids. That's for sure.
Hedwig and the Angry Inch. It's a musical. It's a rock musical with music and lyrics by Stephen Trask and a book by John. It follows genderqueer.
I mean, I'm sure, like, given like the very brief description, it probably isn't. But then again, we haven't seen it.
Just that description alone is enough for me not to show it to a 12-year-old. Or even if I don't think that if you're old enough to make decisions as an adult, i.e., if you're not an adult, if you're still a minor, I don't think you should be consuming things like that. Shouldn't be consuming anything related to sex, drug, and alcohol.
Okay.
And something relating to queer falls in that category.
My general advice is keep an eye on your kids and discuss with them what they're learning and help equip them with the tools to not only to articulate their own viewpoint in response to what they're being taught. Now, the problem is you might not have the time nor the ability to do that. That's no simple thing. And increasingly, if you're unwilling to have your children participate in what is increasingly indoctrination and not education, more power to you wanting to put your children in a situation where they're not being indoctrinated. But the alternative is very, very complicated and difficult. So
Okay, so when I was growing up, my parents were really strict about the stuff that I was allowed to watch.
Mhm.
Any kind of movie that was PG-13 or higher, I was never allowed to watch it. It's only PG or lower. And sometimes PG movies, if they thought like it looked like it was going to be a little bit more adult looking, even though it was PG, I still wasn't allowed to watch it.
What's your view about that right now as a parent?
Now looking back, I don't even know. Because, okay, that's why a lot of times you always think it's crazy that I haven't seen something. But I'm like, I wasn't allowed to watch anything until I was like, I think 15. So I was very, very sheltered about what I was allowed to consume. It was really just Disney and Nickelodeon. That's it. That's all you're allowed to have.
So do you agree or do you not agree with that type of parenting?
I mean, you say that I turned out fine. So I guess. I kind of, yeah, I somewhat agree because you do have to control what your kids consume. And I know you always tell me that it doesn't matter what you control or what you think you're controlling, they're going to have access to everything and they're going to be influenced by everything outside of our control. I don't think that's true just because.
I don't think I said that either. I think you misquoted me.
Really?
What I really do say is that we need to control what she consumes until she becomes an adult. We have the responsibility as parents to mold her mind
Well, because
and train and brainwash her the way we want to. We can't allow outside influences
That's what I'm always saying.
through media to do that to
Like
our job.
we don't have. She doesn't have to. What if there's something we disagree with? She doesn't have to watch those movies.
Have to? She's not.
Exactly.
Not under
Like
my
she doesn't
watch.
need to be watching those movies. She just doesn't. We can be those parents who put controls on their YouTube and all of that. And we can monitor everything she's consuming. She's really only going to go outside of that if she is, at school when other kids talk about certain things, and then she'll want to look stuff up.
What?
Okay, but then if we put blocks on that, that's she's really only going to like try to really bypass us. Because you can always bypass your parents' restrictions, right? There are always ways to do that. But I didn't even care. I wasn't bothered by anything like that until I was a teenager. And at that point, once you're about like 15, I think you're old enough to learn about stuff. You already have a decent foundation anyway.
Okay, here are the rules. Rule number one: as long as you're a child in my home, we have to control what you consume. That is the whole point of homeschooling. And there's no right in the fence. You get to sneak in and do whatever you want. We can allow you to consume some type of media. Da, 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 da. No. The point is, social programming happens when parents delegate their duties. They just like when you refuse to control what your child is consuming, then they get influenced by outside um, influences, by media and such. So
Mm-hmm.
it's our responsibility as her parent, given that we know what worked for us. I think that is because your dad controlled the information that you got as a child and made you turn out the way you did. I think that is because my parents, my dad a preacher, my mom a teacher, they controlled what we were consuming. That's why I turned out the way I did. And this idea that you should just let the child do it, let him be a child. Let him consume. You don't want to give them a tough life. That's nonsense. That's
Mm-hmm.
what's got to the society to where we are today. This idea that you should let
Yeah.
minors, that we wouldn't let drink, we wouldn't let them have sex, we wouldn't let them drive, but we want to give them the autonomy to make life altering decisions like consuming trash.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't come at it from a point of dictatorship, because that's the other people will look at it and maybe interpret it that way.
No, I think it's just you have what you believe is wrong and you don't want it to go into her brain because our minds are everything.
Yes.
If we're consuming whatever type of content, that is going to shape the direction in which we move through life. That's the programming. And most people in this world don't do anything outside of their programming. If you really think about it, like
Right.
there
And it
everyone
starts
lives
from childhood.
passively according to how they were programmed. And most people don't go outside of that and try to learn and go beyond.
Right.
So you gotta have some decent programming.
Yes. It starts from those first 10 years. And if you decide that, oh, you're gonna worry about money or titles or
Mm-hmm.
everything else, and um, you abdicate your duty as a parent to train your child in the way they should go. Because when you train your child the way they should go, when they grow old, they will never depart from it.
Mm-hmm.
Those words ring true till today. And it's the reason why families have, you know, stood the test of time. We have a duty as a parent to continue those traditions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that even if, as an adult or as a teenager, you're curious or you're trying to bypass your parents' rules or you're trying to like see what else is out there and all of that, your programming stays with you no matter what. Even no matter how hard you try to fight it and even try to unlearn things, it's there. I mean, even as an adult, I can see that there are a lot of ways I can't even get past some of the programming that was instilled in me as a child.
And hopefully those foundations were laid with love. Because if the foundations were laid with love, you can't really lose. You know what I mean? My parents, they laid our foundation with love. Whether I liked it or I didn't, it doesn't matter. It was laid with love. They taught us to take education seriously, take spirituality and spiritual growth seriously, take your relationship seriously, lead with love. My father from day one kept telling me to lead my brothers and look out for them and give them the shirt on my back. Those were his words. So I can't, no, regardless of whether I liked how things, because nothing's perfect. He's also human.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that he did I didn't like, but now that I'm older, I look back and I give him grace, because I don't know how I would have handled it if I had the resources that he had. But I know that the foundation that he laid for me was done with love. You know, he had no negative intentions, and a lot of things that he taught me were positive things.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that matters.